this particular faculty development program, since it is the key focus is on the teaching learning towards the outcome based education. So I would like to start the session from the outcome based education, just by giving some small introduction for the outcome based education, and then how this is going to impact for the outcome based accreditation, and then we will slowly start the graduate attributes and then program outcomes. So from the beginning itself, I will give a small clue about the that is a small clue. Instead of that, we can say what is the relationship between this graduate attributes and the program outcomes. Are they same or different? Okay, so such a way I will try to start the session over here. So for this, the overview for the next 2 years, I would like to start from outcome-based education and then outcome-based accreditation. So after this, let us discuss what are the graduate attributes available for the undergraduate engineering program and how these things were related to the program outcomes and other things. So then the key fundamental concept for the outcome-based education, what is called as the course outcomes. So let us discuss a small case study, a real-time example. We will try to calculate how the course outcome attainment is going to be calculated for each and every course. So such a way I have planned to organize for the today's session. Okay. So for that, first of all, let us start. What is the meaning of accreditation? Okay. So it is exactly quite similar like how we are going for our master health checkup. Okay, so for the human beings, how we are going for the medical checkups and other things, it is quite similar for the educational program and for the institutions. Okay, it is a kind of a formal recognition which is going to be handled by the external agency on the basis of impartial assessment of the attainment of a specific requirement against well-defined criteria. So these are all the certain criteria we are going to verify something they have already defined in a clear way. So by imparting these accreditations and other things, the specific program or the institution, they will get the opportunity to recognize themselves. Okay, to diagnose themselves. So if they are identifying where what is their strength, what is their weakness, what is their opportunity, what is their challenges, then there may be the possibility for them to increase such a way how the quality of the program or the quality of the institution in terms of teaching, learning, and education and other things, how it can be improved is going to be discussed over there. So first, let us see what is the significance of the accreditation. So with respect to the significance, first let us concentrate broadly on two major things. One is the national level and what is the international level significance. Okay, so first if you are talking about the national level, students and the parents, they are going to select the institution as well as the program for the admissions based on the accreditation. Earlier case, the students and the parents, they may not aware of all these criteria, education, accreditation, all those things. But recent days, if you see, even once if you are admitting the students in the first year, during the induction program itself, they are asking plenty of questions related to the quality of the program and what is the accreditation, how many programs were accredited in your program. Actually speaking, before starting, they are verifying all the things, then only they are joining. So even if they are after choosing the things, is the whether they can continue in the same institution or in the same program, everything they are verifying in key factors. So in addition to that, for the employers, it will helpful for them to decide about the institution for the recruitment of the graduates. Similarly, for the institutions, it will avail the benefits from the regulatory bodies and the funding agencies. So whenever you would like to apply for some R&D projects or something, so if you have the proper accreditation and other things, definitely it will be helpful for the faculty members, those who are working in the institutions. Then institutions in deciding about transfer of students, when some students are migrating from other institutions to our institution, so whether are they coming from the quality institutions or not, so all these things can be easily identified with the help of these accreditations. And with respect to the international level, the key thing is the mobility of the students for pursuing the higher studies as well as the employment in other countries. Okay, how we are going to ensure these mobilities? See, the thing is, the growing in the number of institutions. So day to day, the number of institutions are also getting a, also the type of the institutions. So there are that is they may start as a small affiliated institution. The affiliated institution may be elevated as a autonomous institution, or it may be a private university, or it may be a deemed university. Such a way, there are so many elevations and other things are happening. So since the growing the number of institutions as well as the type of the programs and all the things, so we must know the significance of the accreditation. Then it will be helpful for us to excel in our specific field, especially in the academic field. Okay, so here the advantage of accreditation, if we see, it will really helpful for the students to get the quality education and better employment opportunity, because the accreditation agencies and other things, they are primarily focusing on the quality of the education and how the students were getting opportunity for the placement and other things. So for that, it is directly helping the students to choose the quality of the education and other things. And for the alumni, it is the accreditations were helping to share their experience and participate in curricular updates in view of the emerging technologies and tools. Similar to that, we for the faculty members, it is benefit of realization of the efforts in terms of the opportunity for attempting more complex problems and career advancement, consultancy project, and then sponsored research and development projects. For getting all these things, these accreditations were really helpful. See, a simple thing. One case, if your institution has already got accredited, it will be directly help you for getting the opportunities from the consultancy and research R&D projects. In other words, if your institution or program is not accredited, so then it will motivate you for getting the sponsor research projects or consultancy, so that your program that is you may think of, if you are getting the opportunity for this consultancy and R&D, so it will help the program. So it is like a mutual understanding. Whether we already got the accreditation or going to get the accreditation, it is not the case. So in all the cases, it will definitely benefit for all the faculty members if you are using the things in the proper way. So, and quite similar for the employers in the industry or academia or in the public services. So it will well-grounded practice engineers with request technical and behavior skills as well as the graduate attributes. So at last, that is as a whole, institution can build up a brand just by taking the accreditation and other things. So how we are going to ensure the global mobility upon the accreditation? See, when we have classified into national and international level, so with the international level, we have specifically spoken about the global mobility of the students for their higher studies as well as the placement. So for this, how this accreditation is going to ensure the global mobility? So for that, simple thing is this accredited programs. So this will be like a educational passport for the graduates. Okay, so the graduations from an accredited program, so it will be like a educational passport for the engineers across the good number of advanced nations and the emerging economics, as well as these graduates may get a leadership position. See, joining from a small institution, the institutions which were not accredited. So from there, when you are taking the people, it will be different from the institutions which are already got accredited, or the quality and other things when they have improved all the things. So there will be a different, definitely there will be a difference from the input of the graduates and other things. So similarly, the faculty may also get invitation for lectures, research guidance, and academic leadership and administrations. So in all the cases, definitely it will be helpful for the faculty members also. And quite similar for the industries, they can easily hire the graduates from accredited institutions for the innovation intensive projects for their higher profits. Then in order to ensure the mobility, how we are going to ensure the global that is global mobility? So in order to assure, there is a multinational accords. There are 3 multinational accords where mutually recognition of the accreditation process and thereby recognizing for the accreditations. So initially It was started by the Washington Accord. Okay, so this Washington Accord was started with six countries, six signatory countries, starting from Australia and other countries. Let us discuss what are the countries and other things later. So the purpose of this Washington Accord is it is specifically for the UG engineering degree programs. Okay, so it will be simply termed as for the engineers. Similarly, the next accord, which was developed during 2001, which is called as Sydney Accord. This is specifically for the engineering technologist. What do we mean by engineering technologist here is the engineer diploma students or the polytechnic students, polytechnic programs, whatever we are calling in our Indian standards. So for those programs, the accord which was called as Sydney Accord. So quite similar in the next year, 2002, Dublin Accord was started. This is for the engineering technicians. What I mean by engineering technicians is it is exactly similar like in our Indian standard. We are talking about the ITA students and other things. So those kind of programs are going to be described or attributed with the help of these Dublin Accord. Okay, so these are all the prime three accords which are available throughout the globe. In addition to that, because of the recent advancement of our computing and IT related things, so in 2008, Shoel Accord has also discussed over there. So in this session, we are going to primarily focus on the first three accords. Okay, from those first three accords, so slowly we are going to neglect these two accords which were not related for us. We will straight away focus only on the Washington Accord. Okay, so here, what do you mean by Washington Accord was it was an accord signed among six countries like Australia, Canada. There is all the developing countries were joined together and they signed among signatory over there during 1989. So the purpose was to mutually recognize and accept the qualifications agreed by the signatories. It was quite simple. How to understand what do you mean by this signatory and all? You just take a small example. India also got a member in Washington Accord during 2014. We are also the permanent member in the Washington Accord. So now National Board of Accreditation was the agency which was helped to become India as a member in the Washington Accord. So now a program which is getting accreditation under the Washington Accord from NBA accreditation, that is equivalent to some other program which is available in some other country if their countries are also available as a member in the Washington Accord. So the program which is accredited by their accreditation agency, both the programs will be considered as equal. Okay, so that is the basic thing which we need to concentrate over here. So then the accord at present it has 22 full signatory countries and 7 provisional signatories are available in the Washington Accord. So here the members of Washington Accord have to follow the outcome-based accreditation from the basic philosophy of outcome-based education over there. So here all the members must accept the defined graduate attributes. Okay, so later we will discuss how the graduate attributes are going to differ from different range, as we already discussed how it is going to be differ for the undergraduate engineering program, how it is going to be differ for the diploma level, and how it will be differ for the ITA level. So those things are going to be differed, but the thing is whomever is following the Washington Accord, they must accept the attributes which are defined for the graduates, that is graduates. So and then Washington Accord is applicable only for the undergraduate engineering programs, as we already mentioned, because there are some other accords are also available like Sydney Accord and Dublin Accord. So these are all some of the permanent signatory countries. So as we mentioned, there are 22 countries. So there, if you see from India, National Board of Accreditation was the important, that is was the institution which helped to become India as a signatory member in the Washington Accord during 2014. You can see most of the developed countries were already became as a member over here. So like Japan, Malaysia, New Zealand, Pakistan, and Peru, Russia, Singapore, and US, UK, Turkey. So all other institutions, South Africa, all these are the permanent signatories. And along with these permanent signatory members, some of the provisional signatory members also. So these countries are there in the entry level only. It will take some time because they may not satisfied all the requirements which are required for the that is accept which is going to be request by the Washington Accord and other things. So slowly, first they will start as a provisional member only, then they will get the permanent signatory and other things. So here, first let us see what are the issues available in the international accord. So here we would like to broadly take from three different categories. First, let us start from the guiding principles. See, with respect to the guiding principle for the international accord, definitely it will provide the autonomy of signatory. That is the major thing which we are going to get the international accord of the thing. So next thing is the system is going to be very transparency for the accreditation system. And then these are all free from the government and other issues, other influences. We all know very well what is the impact of the politicians and other things in the all the education system and other things. So when we are moving for the next level, when the globalization and other things are coming into the point, so how it is going to eliminate or how it is going to reduce the influences of the these kind of unnecessary things which are related for the academic environment and other things. And for the basic educational framework, so they have clearly defined what is the entry level of qualification and how many number of years the program should be existence in the specific institution and other things, and the recognition of the program by the competent accreditation authority and the reputation of the institute. Everything is going to be ensured clearly by these international accords. At the same time, there are really some quite obstacles also available. Simple thing is, whatever the countries, as I already mentioned, if I am taking US is also a member of Washington Accord, India is also a Washington Accord. Okay, so instead of taking a specific countries, we will simply try to concentrate on the developed countries and developing countries. So a program which is being accredited by their agency in the developed country, and a program which is going to be accredited by the countries like us, like the developing country. Okay, actually, with respect to our Washington Accord, what we are trying to mean is both are equal, we try to mean. Okay, but if you compare the education systems in the developed countries and developing countries, so how can we say both are equal and other things? So this is the very major obstacle which we need to concentrate on, this mobility and other issues. And then the accreditation systems which are going to be followed in the developed countries and then developing countries. So these things are also need to be concentrated over there. And what are the different disciplines available in the country. So all these things are need to be considered as some of the issues when we are going for the international accords. And who does accreditation in India? Okay, so major thing in our country, we are going to concentrate on two major classification, which is nothing but institutional level accreditation and then program level accreditation. Okay, so for the institutional level as a whole, okay, so the National Assessment and Accreditation Council, what we are calling as NAC, is going to be accredited for the institutional level. So actually, according to NAC, it is an autonomous body which is established by the University Grant Commission in 1994, which is responsible for accrediting the entire institution. Whereas with respect to the technical program, so as far as we know, the major thing is National Board of Accreditation, which is going to be the specific program. Okay, so here what kind of different programs are going to be accredited with NBAs, that is National Board of Accreditation, is it is accrediting ranging from the diploma level to postgraduate level in engineering and technology and management, architecture, pharmacy, hospitality and mass communication, even hotel management and other things. All these things are going to be accredited by NBA, but these things are program level accreditation. So a major thing only we would like to know. So what is the institutional level accreditation? Who is going to accredit? And what do you mean by program level accreditation? Who is going to be accredited? So for this, let us, our focus is on the outcome-based education. So for that, let us start a brief history about the National Board of Accreditation. So it was set up by the All India Council for Technical Education during the year 1994, and it has become as an independent body in 2020. So between 94 and 2003, the first format was available for the use for the various educational institutions. So there are some different issues, there is some different revisions were also happened. The years and other things were provided for the illustration over there. But after that, after 2002, the next major difference, that is the major shift from the traditional or from the existing accreditation manual. So the outcome based things were brought during 2013 and 14, once India has become as a signatory member in the Washington Accord. So what was the various accreditation models available in the earlier case? From now, if you see, the very first accreditation model was the minimal model, which will often accredited, that is, which will often accredited the institutions with the help of only some numeric values as well as the law-based values. So this kind of minimal model will provide a prescription for a minimal core and very general parameter for the rest of the curriculum. But the thing is, it does not encourage any continuous improvement. So the next level, it was brought into some input output model. So here it will often involving direct prescription of curriculum and faculty composition, which will makes the accreditation process uniform and potentially fair, and this will be relatively easy to maintain also. Okay, but here again, stifle innovation and creativity in the curriculum is still lagging over there. So then the next model, that is the third model, was brought into the that is a practice, which is nothing but our outcome model. So this will focus on the objective and outcome of the program. It is not simply like getting the numbers and other things. Instead of that, it is primarily going to focus on what is the objective and what is the outcome of the specific program. So it will record the evidence of measurements and attainment of the objectives and outcomes. So this outcome based model will always expect too much of data, and they may ask so many data to provide from the institution side, and they will analyze the things periodically. It is not like only during the accreditation time and other things. If we are keeping the system outcome based education in the system in a practice, we need not work out for the accreditation and other things. In order to face the committees and other things, we need not do any separate work for the specific thing. Okay, so there is a small comparison between how the input output based accreditation is working. So here the measurable inputs are going to be provided in terms of some financial resources, that is infrastructures like lab equipments and additional infrastructure facilities, and then faculties, a number of quality students. All these things are going to be provided as a input for your input of the program. And then the measurable outputs are going to be the number of students are how many number of students are graduating, and quantitative grades of the students, that is the pass percentage. In addition to that, the quality of the pass percentage and other things, and the success rate of students. So this is the way how the input output based accreditation model was accredited in the earlier case. Okay, so then how the shift has come from the input output model to outcome based model is, so when we are talking about the input output based accreditation, so it is primarily going to focus on the infrastructure, students, teacher, support staff, management, curriculum, then academic calendar, pass percentage, then number of publication placement. So all those record informations are going to be taken as an input. So based on that, they have tried to measure and they tried to accredit the specific program. But if you're talking about the outcome based education, so here the primary focus is like what knowledge, skill and behavior a graduate is expected to attain upon just completion of the program and after 4 to 5 years of the graduation. Observable and measurable attributes are the outcomes and other things. So for this thing only, the graduate attributes, that is what we are calling as GAs, which are defined by the National Board of Accreditation, and this necessities mapping of outcome with the graduate attributes, objectives, mission, and the visions. These are all the major shift from your input output based accreditation to the outcome based education. It was happened in the recent thing. So finally, what do we mean by outcome based education is it is stating with a clear picture of what is important for the students to be able to do. Okay, then it will organizing the curriculum, delivery, and assessment to make sure whether learning is happening or not. Okay, so instead of we are simply making some calculation, so providing some input, this is the pass percentage, this is the graduation rate, and this is the placement percentage. So instead of making all these things, so we are trying to understand in a clear way, so whether the students were able to do the specific task or not. Okay, so such a way only the outcome based education has come into the picture over there. So here, then if it is the if you are trying to follow the outcome based education and other things, then what are the various processes available and what are the things we need to concentrate. So outcome based education cannot be simply brought into the system. So if we need to follow the outcome based education, that is what the student should be able to do. For that, first of all, we are supposed to concentrate on the outcome based curriculum. This will make how to make the students to achieve the outcome of the specific program or specific attribute and other things. And in addition to the outcome based curriculum, we are supposed to follow the outcome based teaching learning also. Okay, see again talking about the outcome based education, still if you are simply talking about our traditional teaching and learning method, it will not be helpful. So for that, we are supposed to focus on, is there any specific active learning methods available, or how the modern tools are going to be imparted for the teaching learning process and other things. All those things are going to be brought into the picture. Finally, the assessment also should be with respect to the outcome based. So that is what OBA, that is outcome based assessment, also should be in the place. So for all these different models, the specific attributes are need to be focused. So for every model, there will be a key attributes are going to be concentrated over here. With respect to those attributes only, we are going to make use of the outcome based education and other things. Okay. So these are the key constituents of outcome based education, which were followed earlier. Okay, I will tell you the reason why I have primarily used the term called earlier over here. Okay, so initially it will start from the vision and mission of the institution. Then it will focus on the next below level. It will come for the vision and mission of the department, and then program educational objectives, and then program object that is program outcomes, and then course outcomes. So if you are talking about as a bottom up approach, it will be easy for you. Okay, so let us discuss in the later session also what is the meaning of course outcome, what is the meaning of program outcome, what do you mean by PEO, and all the things. But first, let us try to understand the core concept. The what is the key, that is what is the responsibility of the key constitutions and other things. Okay, for every course, when we are talking about the course outcome for every individual subjects and other things, those course outcomes should be helpful for us to attain the program outcomes. Earlier days, so every institution for their own program, they tried to write the program outcomes of their own in line with the graduate attributes. Okay, so the graduate attributes which were provided for the engineering programs by the Washington Accord. Okay, so they have divided some 12 different attributes. So for every institution, see, say for example, if I'm talking about my institution, so for my institution, my program, that is computer science and engineering, okay, we are supposed to write our own program outcome, but all the program outcomes must be in line with the graduate attributes which are defined by the Washington Accord. Okay, so then those program outcomes should define the PEOs, that is program educational objectives. So here, when you're talking about the course outcomes, so it is going to be focused on the at the time of studying. Okay, while the students are doing their courses, so during the period of their study itself, these course outcomes and other things are going to be attained. Then program outcomes, when the student is getting graduated, at the time the PO is going to be attained over there. And PEOs, that is program educational objectives, these are going to be calculated after that is as soon as the students are getting graduated, it will take some 3 to 4 years of time period. Okay, so in general, if you are trying to understand what is this, all these things are nothing but some promising statements. Okay, so here with respect to the course outcome, what kind of promising statements we are trying to say is, upon the completion of the specific course, okay, what we are promising to the students, see, if you complete this course, these are all the abilities you can have. Such a promise we are trying to provide. Similarly, with respect to the program outcomes, so what kind of promise we are providing for the students, those who are entering into the institution or into the program is, see, if you study this particular program, these are all the abilities you will able to get when you are completing your degree. Those promising statements we are trying to provide. Similarly, PEO is nothing but program educational objectives. So there, this promising statement is going to tell our graduates, see, once if you complete the degree from our program, from our institution, okay, after getting your degree within some 2 to 3 years from the date of getting your degree, you will be in this position. Such a way we are trying to provide the promising statement and other things. So how these all these promising statements are going to be evaluated, and are we need to calculate all the attainments and all the things, only we are going to focus on this particular session over here. So for that, let us straight away start from the graduate attributes. First, we will start from what is the purpose of the graduate attributes. Actually speaking, the graduate attributes form a set of individually accessible outcomes that are the components of indicative of the graduates' potential to acquire competence to practice all the appropriate levels. So here, what do we mean by all the appropriate level is, see, as we already told, there are various attributes were available with respect to the Washington Accord and Sydney Accord, Dublin Accord. So many different accords were available. Okay, so for all the different accords, the graduate attributes are going to be same, but based on the range, based on the depth and all the things, how these attributes are going to be focused. That is what primarily we are going to focus on the graduate attributes with respect to the Washington Accord over there. Then the graduate attributes are exemplars of the attributes expected of graduated from one accredited program. So we are not telling these are all the strict things. So these are all the exemplars. So but with these exemplars, how we are going to provide, how we are going to improve the quality of the education and other things. Okay, then the most important thing is the graduate attributes are those are very clear, and those are all the succinct statements of the expected capability, qualified if necessary by range of indication appropriate to the type of different programs. Okay, so here, what are the limitations of the graduate attributes? Let us if we focus here, each signatory defines the standards of the relevant track. See, as we rightly mentioned, for the engineers, Washington Accord is going to define the standards. Similarly, for the engineering technologists, Sydney Accord is going to define. For the engineering technicians, Dublin Accord is going to define. Okay, so for every specific track, there will be a separate attributes are going to be available. Those attributes are against which the educational program outcomes, that is the objectives of the engineering are going to be aggregated over there. So next thing is, each educational level accord is going to be based on the principles of sustainable equivalence. That is, the programs are not expected to have identical outcome and content, but rather it will produce who could enter employment and be fit to undertake a program of training and experiential learning leading to professional to competency and registration. So these things are going to be focused in a clear way with respect to the graduate attributes, and these are going to be limitations also. And the graduate attributes provide a point of reference for bodies to describe the outcomes of substantial equivalence of qualification also. The next thing is the graduate attributes do not constitute an international standard for accredited qualifications, but it will provide a widely accepted common reference for bodies to describe the outcome of the substantially equivalent qualification. That's why now people are thinking that since especially if you're talking about the ABET accreditations and all, if you see earlier case, the leading institutions, they were trying to get the ABET accreditation. But recent days, people are thinking whether ABET accreditation is required. The reason what they are telling is ABET is also one of the signatory member, which became the signatory member of United States. Okay, so they are also the signatory member. We are also the signatory member. So getting ABET accreditation, that is US programs, if they are getting accreditation from the ABET accreditation, if we are getting accreditation from the NBA, both are going to be considered as the same. Then what is the necessity of ABET accreditations and other things? Such a way, people have started thinking because of this Washington and Accord and other things. So, and the final limitation is that is the term graduate. This will not imply a particular type of qualification, but rather the exit level of qualification, be it a degree or a diploma or technician program, whatever may be the thing. Since we clearly focused, there are different accords are available with respect to the different level of the programs. So we are not going to, there is a, when we are using the term graduate, it is not exactly meaning that it must be a degree level program. It is not the case. So then the graduate attributes, if you are talking about the GS and the quality of the program. So specifically, the graduate attributes are accessible outcomes supported by the leading agencies, developed by the signatories, that will give the confidence that educational objectives of the program, that is what we are calling as PEOs, program educational objectives, something here to know how the program educational objectives are going to be achieved. So that is the prime focus of your attribute, so that how the quality of the program is going to be improved over there. Then the quality of the program depends not only the standard objective and attributes be assessed, but also on the program design, resource committed to the program, and then the teaching and learning process which were imparted in the program, and assessment technology. See, we have shown something, you know, if we are talking about the outcome-based education, then we need to follow outcome-based curriculum, outcome-based teaching, learning, and outcome-based accreditation. Everything is need to be satisfied with respect to the graduate attributes which were defined by the specific authority. Okay, if it is for the engineers, Washington Accord is to be satisfied. If it is for the diploma level, that is Sydney Accord. If it is for the ITA level, the Dublin Accord. So all these things should be satisfied in a proper way. Then the accords therefore is going to be based the judgment for the substantial equivalence of the program accredited by the signatories on both GAs and the best practice indicators for the evaluating program quality listed in the accords rules and the procedures. So here, then what is graduate attributes? If we see, checking, as we already mentioned, graduate attributes are going to be organized with 12 different headings, right? So with these 12 headings, each heading is going to identify the different characteristics that allows the distinct role of the engineer for technologists and technicians, and it is going to be differentiate from the range of information. See, we cannot simply say if there are 12 attributes available, all these 12 attributes cannot be seen in all different ranges. That is why for the engineer range, how the 12 attributes are going to be differ. For the polytechnic range, how the attributes are going to be differ. Similarly, for the ITA range, how these attributes are going to be differ. So for this, for each attribute, for each of these 12 attributes, the statements are going to be formulated separately for the engineers, engineering technologists, and engineering technicians by using a common scheme, as well as with ranging information appropriate to the educational track. Okay, see, certain level there are some common STEM are going to be used, and then after that based on the quality of the based on the range of the program, whether it is for the degree level program or diploma level program or ITA level program, the range of information is also going to be changed with respect to the educational track. Okay, let us straight away take the comparison between the Washington Accord, Sydney Accord, and Dublin Accord, how it is going to be over. Okay, so for that, let us take the first graduate attribute, that is engineering knowledge. That was our first graduate attribute. For example, if you are talking about the first attribute, that is knowledge of engineering science attribute. Okay, so here, as we already mentioned, for all the 3 levels of tracks, there should be a common stem, something we told. Okay, so what will be the common stem here is apply knowledge of mathematics, science, engineering fundamentals, and on engineering specialization. Up to this term is going to be used for all the program, that is all the different ranges. But after this, for the engineering range, what will happen? See, after this solution, it will come as to the solution of complex engineering problems. Then what about for the diploma level program? So to define and applied engineering procedures, process, systems, or methodologies. Similarly, for the ITA level students, to wide practical procedure and practices. It is for simple understanding. Let me come in the reverse point. For the ITA level students, see, if we are trying to provide some solution for the specific problem, okay, so then how the ITA level of students can provide the solution for the specific problem is, we are supposed to clearly define the problem. See, this is the problem. For this problem, you have to provide the solution. Such a way, we have to clearly define the problem for the ITA level students. But one step next, if you are talking about the diploma level students, instead of defining the problem in a clear way, we have to tell the problem nature, the procedure of the process, and what is the system and methodology. If we are defining such a way, then with the help of those knowledge, the diploma level students will try to provide the solution. Then if you are talking about the engineering level, the problem is not at all going to be defined over there. Okay, so there it is the responsibility of the engineering students. They have to define by their own the complex engineering problems and other things. They are supposed to think by themselves, and then they need to provide the solution. So that's why, with respect to this first graduate attribute, that is engineering knowledge, the common term for the engineering students, apply knowledge of mathematics, science, engineering fundamentals, and on specialization to the solution of complex engineering problems. Such a way it will come. So then similarly for the diploma level, from here it will start. Then for the ITA level it will start. That's why it was clearly stated that there will be a common stem, and there will be a depends on the range, it is going to be differentiated. Quite similar for all the 12 attributes, we need to be focused on the clever way, right? So with these 3 ideas, so how these are going to be resulting in the statement is provided simply over here. If you are talking about the Washington Accord, as we rightly mentioned, for whom we are making use of the Washington Accord is for the undergraduate engineering programs we mentioned. Okay, so here if you see, apply knowledge of mathematics, science, engineering fundamentals, and engineering specializations as specified in WK1 to WK4, something they are telling, right? So here, what do you mean by WK1 to WK4? See, with the previous example, I clearly told, if you are talking about the ITA level student, so for them, we need to clearly define the problem. See, this is the problem. For this problem, you try to provide the solution, something we told. Similarly, for the diploma level students, instead of telling the problem in a clear way, we have to explain the procedure and all the things. So based on, by understanding the procedure and other things, how they are trying to provide the solution, something we are trying to identify. So for that, based on the different accords, there are different kinds of knowledge levels are also available. That's why this WK1 to WK4 is nothing but Washington knowledge level 1 to Washington knowledge level 4. Actually speaking, there are 8 different levels of knowledges available in each accord. both in the Washington Accord, Sydney Accord, and Dublin Accord. So for the first attribute, what we have taken, that is the engineering knowledge, for the specific first attribute, how it is going to impact for the different accord, the examples were provided over here. That's why in this case, we simply provided the Washington knowledge and Sydney knowledge and Dublin knowledge. It has to be focused from the level of 1 to 4. So how they have defined what is the Washington knowledge 1, what is Washington knowledge 2. Such a way for each and every knowledge there is a complexity level and other things were defined over there. How those things are going to be impacted for each and every attribute, we need to focus over there. So now if I am asking you whether graduate attributes are minimum or maximum, then what do you think? This is the quite important. See here, I have shown some pictorials, some different pictures. That is some purified waters, I can say. See here, Bisleri waters are available, Kenley, then Aquafina, finally Ama waters, and all the things. Okay, here I'm not asking you to rank. That is, I'm not asking you which water is better. Okay, if I am asking you which water will be better, then you can say based on that, somebody will say Aquafina will be better, somebody will say Bisleri will be better. They will try to identify the characteristics and how the purification and other things are there, whether minerals and other things were added, then how what percentage of minerals were added in each and every specific water. So with by analyzing all the things, they will try to say this will be better and this will be better. But here, if you are talking about this pictorial representation, I can simply say all are purified water. All are purified water. Okay, that is the simply thing I would like to that is we would like to convey. So here, if you are talking about the graduate attributes, it will never focus on the maximum things and all. So the minimum things, the educational programs, they must follow the minimum level of attributes which are expected by the graduate attributes. More than the minimum, it is depends on the institutions and the faculty members available in the institution. So here, as we already told, what do you mean by knowledge profile? So after this, I don't want to once again mingle with the Sydney Accord and the Dublin Accord. So let us primarily focus only on the Washington Accord, since our primary focus is on the undergraduate engineering programs. Okay, so for that there are 8 different levels of knowledge profiles were defined by the Washington Accord. Say for example, the first level is a systematic theory based understanding of the natural science applicable to the discipline, and second is focusing on the mathematics, and the third level of the third level of knowledge is focusing on the engineering fundamentals, and the fourth level is going to focus on the engineering specialist knowledge. That's why for the first attribute, the graduate attribute 1, engineering knowledge, we have told it should minimum focus from WK1 to WK4. Okay, so with respect to this, for each and every attribute, for all the 12 attributes, what are the various knowledge profile of the Washington Accord is to be satisfied, we need to be concentrated over here. Okay, so these are all the remaining 4 knowledge profiles which were defined by the Washington Accord, and how it is going to be mapped with our graduate attributes as well as the Washington Accord. So as we already mentioned, for the Washington, that is engineering knowledge, we have already mentioned in addition to the common STEM as well as the complex engineering problems. This is exactly focusing on the Washington Accord. So what kind of knowledge level should be available is also going to be focused over there. Okay, then it is quite similar for the all the 12 attributes. For the problem analysis, if you say, again they are also expecting at least from the knowledge level 1 to knowledge level 4. If you are talking about the design development of the solution, so there the knowledge level 5 is expected over there. And then for the investigation, modern tool usage, and then engineering and society, and environment and sustainability, ethics, individual and teamwork, and for all the 12 attributes, there are some certain levels of knowledge levels are going to be expected by the Washington Accord, and how the attributes are going to be defined by the Washington Accord is also provided here. Okay, so finally we are coming, as we already mentioned, how we are going to write the how we are going to concentrate the graduate attributes for the UG engineering program. So the previous table, what we shown here is we simply told what is the knowledge level expected for each and every attribute. So here by applying all the knowledge levels, okay, so the NBA has provided the 12 graduate attributes for the undergraduate engineering programs. So here the knowledge levels and other things were straight away applied over there. So for first, if you see for the engineering knowledge, you can say apply the knowledge of mathematics, science, and engineering fundamentals and engineering specializations to the solution of complex engineering problem. Okay, so like this, how the common stem and the range specific category is going to be utilized for the graduate attributes were already defined by the National Board of Accreditation for all the undergraduate engineering programs. So since I think the afternoon session they are going to explain in detail about the each and every program outcome and other things. I don't want to interfere on the explanation of the things. We just try to focus on these are all the 12 graduate attributes which were defined by the NBA for the undergraduate engineering programs, right? So finally, the summary is these are all the 12 attributes which were focused by the which were defined by the graduate attributes of the NBA. Okay, so now as I already told from the beginning itself, are GAs and POs whether they are equal or different. Okay, what we told in the earlier case, if you see, the Washington Accord has defined these 12 attributes. Okay, with respect to these 12 attributes, every institution they are supposed to write their own program outcome for the specific program. See, say for example, computer science and engineering, electronics and communication engineering, computer science engineering of a specific institution will write their own program outcomes just by referring the graduate attributes. Similarly, the same computer science engineering of some other institution, they will write their own program outcomes, but they will also refer the graduate attributes. Okay, so here beginning days it is all purely depends on how the people were clearly understood the basic concept of the graduate attributes, how the people are writing the program outcomes and other things. It was quite vary for the same program if you are considering about the different institution. So for that, what NBA has done, so NBA has commonly given the program outcomes, that is they clearly define the graduate attributes, 12 graduate attributes. They themselves they have clearly defined what we shown in the previous thing, some 12 points we have given, you know. So those are all the graduate attributes which are defined by the NBA. Those graduate attributes are going to be considered as it is as a program outcomes. So now you need not write your own program outcome for your program. See, the computer science and engineering of my institution and the computer science and engineering of your institution, both will have the same program outcomes. Not only the computer science and engineering, all the engineering programs. See, if I'm talking about my institution alone, the biomedical engineering, information technology, and mechanical engineering, computer science, all the 4 engineering programs are all the common engineering programs. We can say everything is going to follow these 12 graduate attributes which were defined by the NBA. These are going to be considered as a program outcomes. You need not write any separate program outcome for your own engineering program. Okay, then next question definitely we will ask it. Then if all the engineering programs are going to follow the same graduate attributes, then what is the difference between one program to another program? So for that purpose only, the NBA has given the freedom to the institutions to write the program specific outcomes. Okay, so there are it will range from 2 to 4. Every program can write their own program specific outcomes, so it should not limit, that it should not be less than 2, it should not be greater than 4. Okay, so now in addition to these 12 program outcomes. Now every program, so when you are writing the PSO, there only you should be very careful that how differentiate, how you are going to differentiate your own program with the some other institutions program, the same program. Okay, so you should be very careful on writing the program specific outcomes and other things. So now let us try to understand what do you mean by course, degree, and then a program. Okay, so we all know very well the course is nothing but it is a unit of teaching which encompasses various topics, and that is a particular subject which is going to be taught in one semester by a faculty member. That is what we are calling as a course. And the program is nothing but the mechanical engineering is a program, information technology is a program. So that's why we can simply say the cohesive arrangement of the course. So how a program can be available. So it will consist of a number of courses and a number of co-curricular and extracurricular activities in order to accomplish the predetermined objective leading to the award of a specific degree. So here I can straight away say the program is nothing but mechanical engineering is a program, information technology is a program, and computer science and engineering. These are all the different programs. And what about degree is, it is an academic award conferred upon the student on the completion of a program designed to achieve to define for the defined attribute. Okay, so here we can say BTech is a program, MTech is a program, MBA is a BTech is a degree, MTech is a degree, and MBA. So such a way how we are going to differentiate. So how we are trying to understand the meaning of the course, program, and the degree are provided over here. Okay, so here, as we already mentioned, the key constitutions. Okay, it has to be start from vision and mission of the institution. Okay, first let us try to understand what do you mean by vision and mission. Okay, so here vision is a futuristic statement that the institution or the department would like to achieve over a long period of time. Okay, so while you're writing the vision of your either for your department or for your department, your focus should be for the long term. Okay, so after this many number of period, so what is your prime focus? Such a way you are supposed to write your vision statement. Then what about mission statements is, these statements are essential to achieve the vision. Okay, so your mission statement, while you're writing your mission statement, it should directly reflect that how the vision statements are going to be achieved. So that is what the primary focus. Then the simple example for the vision and mission is provided over here. Just an example is provided here. Okay, then what about the program educational objectives? As I already mentioned, what do you mean by program? It is again, it is a promising statement. Okay, so this promising statement, statements are the broad statements that describe the career and professional accomplishment that the program is preparing a graduate to achieve. That's why I told you, once if a student is graduating from a specific program, okay, so from that time, within some few years, what do we mean is some 3 to 4 year time period from the graduation, what your graduates will do. Okay, so that is the exact promising statement of this PEOs. So the guidelines for this program educational objectives are the PEOs should be consistent with the mission of the institution, and then the number of PEOs should be manageable. You should not write so many PEOs at the same time. You should not write very minimum number of PEOs, and PEOs should be achievable by the program. Okay, which means with the help of the program outcomes, it should achieve the program educational objectives. Then PEOs should be specific to the program, and it should not be too broad. That's why we clearly mentioned what do you mean by PEOs and what do you mean by PSOs, because POs are going to be common for all the engineering program. So while you're writing the PSO, this will help most, there is a maximum for obtaining your program educational objectives and other things. And similar to that, PEOs should be based on the needs of the constituents. So you have to refer carefully, get the inputs from the various stakeholders. So based on the stakeholders' need, we are supposed to define the program educational objectives in a clear way. Then how to evaluate the program educational objective is who are all the stakeholders going to involve in evaluation of the program educational objectives are provided over here, and then how the things are going to be evaluated. But strictly speaking, according to NBA, earlier case, we need to explicitly calculate the attainment of PEO, like how we are calculating the attainment of course outcome, program outcome. Similar way, earlier we are supposed to calculate the program educational objectives also. But recent days, if you are seeing the NBA accreditation manuals and other things, they are not asking us to explicitly calculate the program educational objectives. So even though it is not required for the accreditation purpose, but we are supposed to see whether we are trying to satisfy the promising statements for our graduates or not. We are supposed to focus primarily. And then POs, as we already mentioned, upon the completion of the degree, so what the students can able to do. That's why the program outcomes are going to be a narrow statement that describe what students are expected to know and be able to do the graduate. See here, as I already told earlier, these program outcomes were written aligned with the graduate attributes. Now it is that is, you need not do anything for the program outcomes, because NBA they themselves they have clearly given these are all the 12 program outcomes you have to follow as common for all the engineering and especially for all the undergraduate engineering programs. You need to focus only on the program specific outcomes. Okay, so you need not write your own program outcome for the engineering programs over here. Okay, so here the most important and the fundamental concept for the outcome based education, which is nothing but the course outcome. Okay, so let us discuss something detail about the course outcome, since this is the most fundamental for the outcome based education. Okay, so it is a student focused, strictly it is not faculty focused. Okay, which means learnings which is focused on learning, not the coverage oriented. Okay, the course outcomes are based on the learning, how the students are going to be learn. It is not like how much portion the faculty members are going to be covered. Okay, and then the alignment between the course program and then institution level, it should be very careful. That's why I told you from the previous slides. So we have to follow a bottom up approach. Okay, from the bottom level, course outcomes will be available. The course outcomes are going to be written such a way that how we are going to achieve the program outcomes, then how the program outcome is going to achieve the program educational objectives, and then how the program educational objectives are going to be achieve the vision and mission of the department as well as the institution. Okay, so for that the alignment of the course program and institution level, it should be focused in a clear way. So where the course outcomes need to reflect both the objective and outcome that the academic program represent as well as the broader mission of the institution as well. Okay, so in addition to that, focus on abilities central to the discipline. So this is also we need to focus, and then aspects of learning that will endure. The students they have to that is teaching students new modes of thinking. So our prime objective here is we need to make the students to think, and we need to make the students to learn. Okay, it is not simply getting the marks and other things. Okay, and these course outcomes are going to be limited to the manageable numbers again. So it need not be, that is say for example 4 to 6, unless otherwise required, don't try to exceed more than 6. Okay, so as we that is most of our traditional programs, we are following only 5 program, that is 5 course outcomes. You may see in all in the syllabus and other things. Each outcome is going to focus on every unit. Okay, really it is a best practice. Unless otherwise that is unless required, you need not exceed the course outcomes beyond. That is for one specific unit. If required, you write more than one outcome. Otherwise, you can restrict only with single outcome. At the same time, if required, if it is not much relevant for 2 units, you can write only one outcome. That is also acceptable only. Okay, and the final thing is it should be specific enough to measurable. How we are going to measure the attainment. That should be very, very careful. Okay. So here, let us start with a small case study. Okay. So for this example, I have concentrated what we are following in our education, that is in our institution, and how the course outcome is going to be calculated. Okay. So while discussion, if you have any clarification, you may interrupt me in between itself, because for me it may be familiar, since we are following a long back in our institution. Since the methods or the attainment tools are different from one institution to other institution, if you have in between any clarification, you please interrupt me. Okay. So the attainment tools, if you are talking, the major classification here is continuous internal assessment and semester examination. Okay. So continuous internal assessment is going to be handled for 40 marks, and for the end semester we are handling for the 60 marks. Okay. So for the continuous assessment, what are the various examinations and other things? It is purely the direct assessment method what we are following. Okay. So for the continuous assessment, how we are conducting the examinations, there are two unit tests we are conducting for 10 marks, and then two midterm tests we are conducting, and then two assignments we are collecting from the students. Okay. So here, unit test 1 will focus on that is course outcome 1, which means the first unit alone is going to be covered for the unit test. So the most of the cases it will be only for the CO1 alone. Okay. If the specific unit has more than one outcome, then according to that you have to concentrate on what are the various outcomes are going to be concentrated for the specific examination. Okay. And then for the midterm test 1, course outcome 1 and then course outcome 2, these two things are going to be covered. Then for unit test 2, course outcome 3 is going to be covered, and for midterm test 2, course outcome 3, course outcome 4, and course outcome 5s. Okay, that is units 3, 4, 5s are going to be covered maximum. And for the assignments, the first 2 units are going to be covered, that is the first 2 outcomes, and similarly for assignment 2, the remaining 3 outcomes, that is CO3, CO4, and CO5, these 3 outcomes are going to be utilized over here. Okay. First of all, how the question paper is going to be set such a way that the we are going to follow the outcome based education. That is the primary focus. That's why from the beginning itself, it is not simply like following the outcome based education. Your curriculum must be in line with the curriculum that is outcome based curriculum. That's why each and every unit should be that is each and every course, it should be clearly defined what are the outcomes for the specific course. Upon the completion of the specific course, what the students can able to do, you should be clearly defined, and what is the knowledge level of each and every course is also to be focused a lot, because most of the places we are following the revised Bloom's taxonomy. Rare cases some people may follow the Dave's taxonomy and other things. Okay, whatever may be the thing, if you are talking about the knowledge level, so how we are going to set the attainment threshold, that must be directly with respect to your knowledge level. See, if you're talking about the higher level of knowledge, see, say for example, K4 level of knowledge, you are going to define a specific outcome. Okay, but another one is only up to the K2 level. If you see, okay, for both the cases, if you are going to fix the threshold as same, it won't be nice. Okay, but here in outcome based education, the faculty members have the complete freedom. First of all, you just try to understand that most of the people, what they are thinking is with respect to the outcome based education, there will be a written rules are available. There are some certain formulas. This is the way we have to follow. Since we don't know the written rule or the methods, we are not able to. It is not the case. Okay, just by understanding the philosophy of the outcome based education, you are going to define by your own. See, for the calculation of course attainment of your course, you have your own freedom to define. This is the procedure I want to follow to calculate the attainment for my particular course. So these are all the thresholds which I am going to follow. If you are the only member going to start the specific course, If more than one number of faculty members are going to start the same course, then it should be a collective decision. Then the decision should be satisfied by all the course handling faculty members. Such a way you have to define by your own. So you need not think about there will be a written rule or formula. It is not at all the case. Okay. Now let us see one after another how the examination pattern or other things will be in our institution is. For unit 1, most of the time, especially last time due to the COVID and other things, we have made some slight changes with respect to the online examinations and other things. Whatever I'm going to explain now is what we followed just before. Okay, before that we have followed different terminology. Since we tried to understand the philosophy of the outcome-based education, it was very helpful for us to change the patterns and other things in the because of the COVID situation and other things. Okay, so here what we followed is, you just see for the unit test 1, we asked 2 questions. Okay, so as I already mentioned, unit test 1 is going to focus only on first course outcome. 2 questions, both the questions are going to be 5 marks. So the CO1 attainment level itself is only up to K level. So we did not exceed it up to the, that is more than K level. And we did not try to reduce the K1 level also. Okay. And one more thing is, there is no choice here. Okay. Both the questions are compulsory for all the students. Right. And for the midterm test, there are 2 questions asked. Okay. The questions were organized in such a way that 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. Here, 1A is with respect to course outcome 1. All remaining 3 questions were related to the course outcomes 2. Okay, that is the question 1B, question 2A, question 2B. All other things were related to the course outcome 2. Again, every question has a weightage of 5 mark. Okay, so still there is no choice here. Okay, so similarly for assignment 1, so there were 2 questions asked. Here it is not CO1, it is CO2. Okay, so for question 1, it was covered course outcome 1, and for question 2 it covered course outcome 2. Okay, so simple thing, by considering that is 2 units, we have provided one assignment, that is assignment 1. Again, here also we did not provided any choice for the student. And with respect to unit test 2, it is purely for CO3, as I told. Okay, again 2 questions, there is no choice. Here the attainment level is, that is the knowledge level is up to K3, that is apply level. Okay, and for midterm test 2, which consists of 3 course outcomes, that is CO3, CO4 and CO5. Here we have carefully set the question paper such a way that it should not affect the attainment of a specific course outcome. You can see here why it was mixed up. There is, if you see question 1, question 2 as well as question 3. Okay, we did not directly ask that is question 1, it is not only from the CO3. Question 2 is not only from CO4. Question 3 is not only from CO5. Okay, instead of that, we have made some we have made some plan such a way that the attainment, that is the freedom, should be provided for the student. At the same time, the attainment also should not be affected while doing the calculation and things. But here the thing is, out of these 3, only 2 questions were expected to answer by the students. Okay, then finally assignment 2. Again, we have focused on 3 outcomes, that is course outcome 3, course outcome 4, and then course outcome 5. So again, there is no choice over here. Okay, so far whatever we have discussed is what are the various attainment tools available. Okay, now what you are supposed to do is, so question wise mark you have to prepare for all the assignment tools. Okay, you should made ready, because when you are going to calculate the course outcome attainment is only at the end of the semester only. Okay, so now by this time you will have the questions for all the examination and other things. The question wise mark, each question with respect to which outcome, everything you should be clearly mentioned. You have to maintain in a proper way. Okay. So whatever we have discussed so far, we have that is we discussed with respect to the examination pattern. That is, what are the different attainment tools we are using. Based on the attainment tool, we have simply listed over here. Now I'm going to do some small arrangements. The thing is, what is our objective over here? We need to calculate the attainment of course outcome. Okay, so for this course there are 5 outcomes available. Okay, so now instead of listing with respect to the examination, that is attainment tools, that is unit test 1, midterm test 1, assignment 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to organize the same table with respect to COs, that is CO1, CO2, CO3. Simple example, you just see where and all the CO1 is available here, CO1, 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 and then this is also CO1. This is CO2, I told you already. Okay, so here these 4 components are going to be useful for us to calculate the attainment of CO1 alone. Okay, similarly for CO2, you see 1, 2, 3, these 4. Okay, in addition to that, yes, here there is no CO2 is available. And for CO3, if you see these 2 questions, and then this particular question, and this one, and this one. Okay, these are all the questions which is going to useful for the attainment of CO3. And then for CO4, if you see this particular one, and this one, and this one. Okay, so similarly for CO5, so these are all the things. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to rearrange the same table such a way that how the course outcomes are going to be. CO1, as I already told, you just see unit test 1, question 1, question 2, then midterm test 1, question 1A, assignment 1, question 1. All the things I have taken here. Okay, so such a way for all the course outcomes we have listed over here. Okay, so for the explanation purpose, I have also taken the marks of the individual students. Let me share my Excel sheet also. From there, we will try to calculate directly. So what is our first thing is, we need to see what is the attainment of unit test 1, that is how many students were attained, that is how many students were attained the specific outcome with respect to the question number 1 of the unit test 2. Okay, can you able to see the Excel sheets?
Yes,
Excel sheet, is it visible?
yes, visible there.
Yeah, fine. Yes. So here you just see whatever the examples we have taken, unit test 1, midterm test 1, all the marks. Okay, so all the split ups, everything we have listed over here. So what I'm simply doing is, you see, for the course outcome 1, okay, first our focus is we are going to calculate the attainment. See here, say for example, when I can say a specific student has attained the specific outcome, we need to fix some threshold. Okay, for example, in this case, I'm going to fix the threshold for all the cases as common as 60%, which means if a student is going to obtain 60% and above in a specific question, he will be considered as that is the specific student has attained the particular CO, or he has attained the score and other things. Such a way we are going to fix. Okay, so with this, first CO1, first you need to see there are some blanks and other things also. Wait just a minute. For question 1, here there are 69 students appeared in the examination. All the students were appeared. No student got absent for the examination. Okay, if any student is absent for the examination, it is also equivalent that the students were not attained. Okay, for the attainment calculation, you cannot neglect those students like what we are calculating for the pass percentages and all. Okay, So here we need to concentrate. If the student, if he is not appearing for the examination, it has to be considered as he did not attain. Okay. So since the maximum mark for the specific question is 5 mark, we have fixed the level as 60 and above. So 3 mark will be the focus. So all the students were attained 4 and above. So what I can do is here this attainment is 69 divided by 69, which means 100% of the students were attained. Okay. So similarly, if you are coming to the second question, I'm going to neglect the score 2 because we have fixed the level only up to there is a 60% as a threshold, and then no blanks and other things available. So here 68 students were attained out of 69. So for second question, 68 divided by 69. Okay, what is the percentage for 68 divided by 69? Let me see. 68 divided by 69 is so 98.55%. And then midterm test 1, first question. So this is the midterm test 1. First question is going to cover the CO1. So again, it is for that is the maximum mark for the CO. That is the specific question is 5. Since we have fixed the things as 60%, let us see. There are some blanks also available. Blanks maybe the student may not be attended here. The specific student 63, he was absent for the examination. So I will consider the student does not attain the particular thing. So I will neglect that one also. Then 60% above I am taking. So here 67 students were scored. So 67 divided by 63, if you take, so 67 divided by 63 again 97.10. So then let me come for assignment 1 and then Q1. So assignment 1, question 1. Here, if you are focusing on more than 60%, okay. So actually speaking, it is the maximum weightage here is 2.5 for every question. So since 2.5, I will take from 2 and above because 1.5, yes, 1.5 also we can consider as the above 60%. So 51 students out of 69 were attained over here. So 51 out of 69 students. So now the calculation is 51 out of, so here with respect to attainment is 73.91%. Okay, similar way we have to calculate for all other outcomes also. Okay, but the thing is, whatever we have discussed so far, that is the example what we have taken over here is we did not provide any that is choice from the choice for the student. Here definitely you will not get any confusion, I think so. Okay, so this can be easily understood, but in order to calculate the overall attainment, most of the places faculty members try to take the average value for this score. Okay, so wherever possible, you try to avoid taking the average because it will sometimes it will badly affect the outcome attainment. Okay, so for calculating the overall attainment, once again, what you are supposed to do is you have to add all the values of the numerator as well as denominator, and then you try to calculate the attainment. Okay, but again, if there is no much difference, there is no difference in the denominator, that case you can directly take the average. There is no problem over there. But when there is a difference in the denominator and other things, you try to avoid taking the average values. It is exactly like your calculation of how the calculation of SGP and CGPA, there is SGPA and CGPA is going to be different. Even though we are calculating the semester grade point average for every semester, in order to calculate CGPA, we will not take the average of SGPA. Am I correct? Once again, we will calculate from the beginning. So it is quite similar. You try to avoid taking average wherever it is possible. Okay. So as I already told, in this case, we did not focus any, what I can say, any choice over there. Okay. So instead of that, we will try to take some example with choice, because in our examination pattern, in this case, for midterm test 2 alone, we have provided the choice. Okay. So midterm test 2, which is going to cover CO3, CO4 as well as CO5. Then let us try to calculate the attainment. Yes, tell me. Okay. So here, since we have
Excuse me, sir.
provided, yes, madam. Any
Yes, sir. This is
clarification?
Manikandan.
Yes.
Sir, I have one question, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good
Please tell me.
morning. So in for which criteria we have to fix that 60% is takers attainment, sir?
No, in this example, I have taken such a way. That is why
Okay,
from the
okay,
beginning
okay.
itself, it should not be the case. It should be
Yes, sir.
fixed based on your knowledge level, I told you.
Okay, sir. Okay,
Okay.
okay.
So that you
So
have
further
to
we
check.
have to fix the rubrics, right? Before fixing the
Uh,
particular attainment, where we have to fix any rubrics for that?
No, the rubrics and other things are not required for this direct calculation. If you're talking
Okay,
about the
okay,
practical examinations and other things, there you have to
okay,
fix the proper rubrics and other things. But
okay,
for
okay,
the
okay.
direct written examination, you need not think up to the rubrics and all.
Okay, sir.
Yes, yes, fine. Okay.
Thank you
So
so much.
yes, thank you. So next, if you are coming for the midterm test 2, okay, better we shall calculate the attainment level of 5. Okay, there only there are so many gaps and other things available. Let us see how it is. Okay, so here CO5, if you come, midterm test 2, question 2B is focusing. Okay, midterm test 2, then question 2, yes, this is going to be focused. First, let us try to see, is there any non-attained students are available. Okay, if you see here, this many students were not attempted the question. Okay, but what we have discussed in the earlier case, if a specific student is not attempting the specific question, I'm going to consider that that student is not attained. Such a way only we have discussed. But in this case, the question pattern itself is, out of 3 questions, the student has his own freedom to decide any 2 questions. Any 1 question can be left as blank. Okay. Now, when I'm concentrating on this particular course outcome, you just see this many number of, that is, there are 17 students, they did not attempted this particular question, but whereas all the students were attempted the remaining questions. Okay, so in this case, you should not consider these 17 students as not attained. Okay, you should be very careful. And one more simple example I'm giving. Suppose this student, for example, I'm telling this particular student, he attempted only this particular 1 question. Okay, remaining 2 questions he did not attempted. If it is the case, okay, you try to take the advantage. Okay, which outcome is going to affect badly your course outcome, there you try to account the student. In other place, you try to eliminate. Okay, this is just for the example I'm telling. In this case, all the 17 students, they need not attempt these questions, since they have already attempted the remaining questions. So again, my denominator I'm going to take here as 69 only. So for 69, how many questions, how many students were attempted? More than 3, if you see. Okay, so denominator I'm going to change. I'm not going to take it as 69. So there are 30 students scored. Yes, there are just a minute. First, let us try to see how many students were blank. So there are 17 students, they need not attend. Okay, so 69 minus 17, if you are talking, what will happen? 2, then 52 only is going to be for the denominator. Out of 52 students, how many students were attained? If we see here, again, above the 60% of threshold. If you see here, 32 students were attempted. So 32 divided by 52. Similarly, if you're talking about the 3B question. So 3B, if we are coming, again, let us see how many students were blank. Okay, there are 31 students. Here, all the 31 students, they have already attempted the remaining choice. So we are going to eliminate these 31 students for the calculation. So 69 by minus 31, which is equivalent to 38. So here denominator is going to be only 38, not 69. Okay. So out of 38 students, how many students were secured more than 60% if we see? So there are 21 students were attained, 21. So again, you are going to calculate the percentage of students. A similar way, you have to calculate for all the tasks or the tools which we are taking for the attainment calculation. Finally, we will try to write the course outcome in here. Say, for example, if it is coming 80% and then 67%, and then 78%. 54%, 95%, something if you are getting the final attainment. Okay, so again the correlation levels we have to fix with respect to low, medium as well as high. Okay, so again it is available with respect to your that is the freedom is given for the faculty member side, how the attainment levels are going to be fixed over there, when you can set the level as high, when you can set the level as medium, or when you can set the level as low. Everything you can fix by your own in consultation with the faculty members, those who are handling the same course over there. Okay, if I am fixing 75% and above is going to be considered as high, and then between 60 and 75 is going to be considered as medium, less than 60 if it is low. Okay, so we can straight away write 80 is above, then the attainment level is 3. 67 will comes under the medium level, so it is the level is 2. Again, this is also the level 3, and this is the low level we have attained, which is nothing but 1 and 3. So this is the simple way how we are going to attain, that is calculate the attainment of the course outcome. Okay, see once again what I have explained, that is what we have taken here. It is like what it is only for the example purpose. So with our understanding, we tried to convince from our side, this is the way it is. It is providing a better way of understanding outcome based education. It can provide the calculation of the course outcome attainment. Okay, now if you ask the question me, okay, see finally what we are doing, what percentage of students were attained the specific course outcome only we are calculating in this case. Okay, but if you are asking for a specific question, you just see student 5, let us take. Okay, whether student 5 has attained all the outcome. If it is the case, for that we need to calculate separately. Okay, so what is our objective and what procedure we are going to follow? That is why in most of the accreditation manuals and other things, they will not ask you in all the places only the values. Okay, so in all the places, first they will ask you to define the procedure which you are following. Okay, with respect to the procedure what you are following, then you have to show the sample calculations and other things only. So again I'm telling, it is in the hand of faculty members. You try to define by yourself and you try to calculate the course outcomes and other things. Any clarification in the calculation of attainments?
Yes,
Or any
sir.
discussion if you want? Yes, yes.
Sir, again, this is Nagendra. Sir, while fixing the level, we have to give any justification in above 80%. I have to fix the level of 3.
Definitely, we have to provide,
Yes.
sir. A simple thing. Earlier case, we spoke about the knowledge level. Okay.
Yes, sir.
See, when I am talking about the K4 level and the K2 level, most of the time K2 level is the low level, that is only up to the understanding level. So most of the students level, they can easily try to. Okay, there you are supposed to fix the target level little bit high. Okay, such a way if you are providing the justification, it will be good.
Okay, sir. While giving a justification, we have to discuss with senior people who are taking the.
No, not the senior people and all, sir. If you are the only faculty member handling the course, okay, then you can take your own decision. But the thing is, if more than one faculty member, but the thing is, senior people, what do you mean? You just consider them as evaluators. Okay, when they are asking you, you try to convince them. That's all. Okay, so here there is faculty members are common, okay, but how much you understood the philosophy, that is the thing. There is no senior, junior and all not required for this. How much you understood the base outcome based education philosophy, and how much they understood, that is the simple thing you want here.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Fine. Anything else, sir?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So next thing is we told some attainment, this, that and all we are going to calculate. Okay. So what are all the things we are going to calculate with respect to the attainment level, and when we need to calculate all those things? Just small names. As we told, course outcomes are going to be calculated upon the completion of the course. That is every semester. Once if the semester is going to be completed immediately. And one more thing I forgot to told you here. What example I have shown here is only for the continuous assessment, that is internal examination only. Similar way you have to calculate for the semester and examination also. Okay, there also you need to identify what are the different tools available, and which question is going to cover which outcome. Everything you have to calculate in a clear way. And in this case we have 40% of weightage for the continuous assessment, 60% of weightage for the there is semester and examination. But some cases, some institutions, if you take 20% maybe for the continuous assessment, 80% maybe for the semester end. So with respect to that final attainment, when you are here, whatever we calculated with respect to the 100% and other things are available, it should be once again converted into 40%, because we have taken only the continuous assessment. Okay, with respect to the assessment tool which you are following in your own institution, you have to fix that one also. That also you should be very careful. Okay, so the course outcomes upon the completion of every course, you have to calculate every semester end itself. Okay, then program outcome, whenever one specific batch is coming out, one passed out of students are coming, you have to you should try to calculate the program outcome for the specific. Then PEO, as I already mentioned, earlier case, for the NBA purpose, we are supposed to calculate specifically and the procedure and other things. But now NBA is not explicitly asking to calculate the program educational objectives and all, but for assessing the objective for your quality of the program, you can do by your own. Nobody is going to stop you for calculating. But for NBA purpose, it is not required. When you have to calculate is from the few years after the graduation. I told so once if a batch is going to be passed out, okay, so when they are going to passed out, from that batch to 4 to 5 years, so you are supposed to start calculating the program educational objectives. And then next thing is, excuse me, with your permission, let me take some water. Is the heading visible for everyone? Actually, for me, it is hiding.
Yes, sir.
It's visible for everyone. Yes, sir. Okay. There will be some option for hiding this, right? Okay. So here, the next thing is the program specific criteria. PSC people used to say. Okay. So here, the major concentration will be for the for your program, which professional society you are following. Okay. So that also we need to be very clear. For every program, there should be a specific criteria. If you are not going to satisfy the thing, definitely the evaluator will find fault on the things. These are all the things which are missing in your curriculum and other things. So everything you need to concentrate over here. And then yes. Next thing is publishing and disseminating the vision, mission, and PEO, PSO statements. Okay, so we should be very careful on disseminating all our promising statements to the stakeholders. Okay, so most probably all these statements must be available in your institution websites. There we should have the clear, that is how we are trying to disseminate all these statements to our stakeholders. We should be very clear. And then through the websites and the curricular books, sometimes some people used to send their that is, they may set the signatures through their mail also. If you see over there, for their vision and mission of the department. And okay, so those are all the relevant proof for you to face the committee. So these are all the way how we are publishing our statements to the stakeholders and other things that are provided here. And how do the program educational objectives and the program outcomes and the COs are going to be related? Okay, as we told, our prime focus is how we are going to achieve the final mission, that is through the mission, how we are going to achieve the vision of the institutional level. Okay, so that's why I told you it is a bottom-up approach. We are going to focus from course outcomes, program outcome, and then program educational objectives, and then it is primarily focusing on the mission and vision of the program. Okay, so here with respect to NBA, there are 10 different accreditation criteria available. So out of these 10, the first 7 criteria are program specific, and remaining 3 are the institutional level specific. Since these are all beyond the scope of our discussion, I don't want to interfere much on these things. Okay, and how the consistency between PU and mission is available, we are supposed to see the things carefully. As I rightly mentioned, you need not calculate the program educational objective for the NBA purpose, even though, okay, how your program educational objective statements are going to be matched with your mission statement. So for that, first thing, the key components which are available for the mission statement, it should be broken. Okay, it should be written, and in what way those are going to be correlated with your program educational objectives. We need to be correlate in a proper way. Okay, then similar way, how the program educational objectives are going to be aligned with your program outcomes. So here, not only the program outcomes, we need to concentrate on PSOs also. In addition to 12 program outcomes, the 2 to 4 program specific outcomes also we need to be concentrated. The mapping also we need to be concentrated over there. And then finally, as I told, from the bottom level, so each and every CO, how the CO is going to be mapped with your program outcomes. So there also we need to be concentrated over here. Then these are all the various components available in the program curricular. And these are all the, that is how we are going to balance between theory and practical, that is lecture, course, tutorial, practical. Still, I could see so many curriculums. That is the credit, and the, if you are talking about the tutorial and the practical component, if there are 2 contact hours available for the tutorial and the practical component, you are supposed to provide, that is divided by 2, that is 0.5 credit for, that is divided by 2, which means 2 contact hour will have 1 credit, and total number of hours you have to allocate exactly to the record number of contact hour over there. One simple example I will try to give here. Say for example, lecture hour is 1, tutorial hour is also 1. Let us assume lecture hour is 1, tutorial hour is also 1, practical hour is also 1. Okay, in this case we have to allocate 3 hours, but if you see the number of credits for this, only 2, because the lecture hours, 1 contact hour will have 1 credit exactly, whereas for tutorial and practical it will be divided by 2 only. Okay, so for this contact hour will be 0.5, for this also 0.5, that is the credit. Okay, so in total there are 2 credits, but the thing is total number of hours we are supposed to allocate 3. Most of the committee members, they will carefully see in tutorial component of your syllabus, they might be given 2 or 4 sometimes. Okay, but if you see the timetable, they may allotted only for 2 hours just by seeing the credit. Okay, you should be very careful on these things and all. and the laboratory work and the project work should contribute towards the outcome delivery method and the assessment of the post delivery, which is going to be taken as a very key over here. Okay, and similar to this, the program curriculum and the contribution of the professional courses, how it is going to be, we should be careful. And these assessment tools already we have discussed with detail in the case study. Rubrics. So this is for the subjectivity purpose, as we told. Whenever most of the time the rubrics and other things are going to be useful for the indirect assessment calculation, because the attainment calculation is majorly going to be classified into two things. One is direct calculation and the indirect calculation. So whenever you are talking about the rubrics and other things, most probably in addition to the laboratories and other things, wherever you are going to do the indirect calculation, you can make use of the rubrics and other things. So this is a sample example which is given for the rubrics, when you can provide for value 1, when it will be 2, when it will be. So when you are strictly following the rubrics and other things, the subjectivity is going to be eliminated over there. How we are eliminating the that is the subjectivity from the marks and the grading system. Okay, so quite similar, the rubrics are going to be useful. And these PEO statements, yes, all other things, whatever we have discussed so far. Okay, so finally, what are the administrative setups are available for the outcome based education is the internal quality assurance,